I'm here with Håkan Nesser, the author of the INTRIGO book on which the film Death of an Author is based on. What inspired you to write the story in the first place?
Yes, in this case it was a real thing. I mean, usually inspiration doesn't come that quick, but in this case it was. I was at home and I was listening to a concert recording on the Swedish radio, and apparently it was a recording. There was audience there, and then during this concert, Vienna concert by Beethoven, somebody coughed in the audience. You heard clearly, and I thought immediately, would it be possible to find out who that person was sitting there in the concert hall coughing? And that was the starting point of this story, the starting point of... It's not in the beginning of the film, but it was the beginning of my story. And he, in the short story, he recognizes this cough, which I think you can, if you live together with somebody, you can hear that she or he is sneezing or snoring or whatever, these little sounds that we make. And he realizes that, or he believes, it's my woman. She was sitting there coughing. The problem is that he thinks that she died 3 years ago. And then he checks out when was this concert recorded. It was only a couple of months ago, and which means that if it was her, she must be alive. That was the starting point of the short story.
Ah, interesting. Do you really think one can recognize such a cough?
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I mean, I haven't checked it. I mean, but I mean, if you, he might be mistaken. Perhaps it wasn't her, but at least he thinks, the important thing that he believes that it was her. And then he starts acting from this belief that my wife was sitting there coughing. I must find her. And then he has to travel in the film to Mardam to find her.
Oh, interesting. So how would you describe your main character, David?
Black and white. He thinks he's a good guy, but he has this dark secret, of course. So he's not that sympathetic, I think. He's a bit manipulative, and he's trying to take revenge for something, and he's perhaps a little bit full of himself. But you can, if you were a woman, he wouldn't be your first choice to marry, I think, because there is too much darkness inside him.
And what about Henderson? Is he kind of the opposite to David?
Yeah, there is a mirror, because Henderson is the older writer, but I think he's the same kind of character, only smarter. That he's taken a further step. That David is a bit naive and trying to, in a very not very smart way, find out what happened to his wife, whereas Henderson is so much more clever.
So he's much older?
Of course, he has more experience, yes.
Exactly. And how and to which extent have you been involved in making the INTRIGO movies?
I was asked by Daniel Alfredsson, the director, to take part in writing the script. I didn't write the script. I was just sort of a consultant. We discussed it, we talked about it, but Daniel and Dita Bongenhielm, his wife, they wrote the script, and I sort of was a little bit involved only. But it was a fun job, because they were so generous and open, and we discussed a lot of ideas, and it was so that was it was from they invited me. That's as simple as that.
A book is a book and a film is a film. How much of your original story is actually in the film, and do you like it?
Pretty much. I mean, the book is in the film, because it's the length of the book, of the story, is basically the same length as a film script. It's 125 pages or something, so you don't have to cut away a lot of things. So I think the film is very close to the book, really, and which is good to see that it's possible. Otherwise, why would you want to make adaptations when you have to cut away so much? So in this case, I think it was worth the effort, and I think that Usually I say that the book is always better than the film, but in this case I'm prepared to admit that the film is at least as good as the book.
For the story, you created the fictitious town of Mardam. What's the reason for that, and why is it not taking place in a real existing city?
Well, when I created Mardam, it was while I started writing chapter 2 in the first book in the Van Witteren series, which was like in the beginning of the 90s. And I realized that I had to decide where is this story taking place. And then should I put it in Stockholm, Gothenburg, Sweden somewhere, or where? And then I realized that I would like to put it in a fictitious city. I don't have to make a lot of research. It creates a lot of freedom. And then I came up with the name of Mardam, and so it is a city somewhere it's a lot of the Netherlands, a little bit Germany, a little bit Poland. But it was just gut feeling. I didn't think a lot about it. I just made it up, and then I couldn't change it. But I mean, it was a good decision, but it came pretty quick.
Death of an Author is also a story about revenge, something you use a lot in your books. What's so attractive about this topic?
Because it's a very natural, I think it's a very natural feeling, and very old. If somebody harms you, your first reaction is to, if somebody hits you, your first reaction probably is to hit back. If you have time to think, you might think that, oh, no, I shouldn't hit back, I should forgive him or her. But revenge it's a kind of instinct that we all have. We try to hide it normally. We try to because it's so primitive to take revenge, but still we do it. I mean, and so many brutal things that you see are somebody has sort of shouted at you or they just give you something, and your immediate reaction is so natural to take revenge. And in this case, it's like a planned revenge, where you think about it. They say, there is an English proverb saying that revenge is a dish best served cold. And also this creates a very good story if you can wait with your revenge for a year or 2 years or 30 years. That's the way of telling a good story.
Let's get back to David. Is he a winner, a loser, or something else?
If he's a winner or a loser, I think that is for the spectator to decide.
As a writer of crime stories, how much do you watch or read real crimes to be inspired for your next book? Do you use real crimes in your books?
They are all made up, because real crimes are often very simple to solve. There is somebody's drunk and he gets pissed off with his wife and he knocks her with a bottle, and unfortunately she dies, and then he calls the police, and then it's done. And that is like, you can tell that story in half a page. Murders and these in literature, you have to be smarter than that, otherwise it wouldn't get interesting. So I'm not that much into real crime.
Mr. Nesser, your wife Elke is a psychiatrist. Did she ever analyze your writing obsession about crime and murder? And what was her conclusion?
This is a family secret. No, she didn't really. I mean, sometimes we discuss it from her professional point of view, the psychiatric things. But I think that sometimes I ask her, and would this be possible? And she says yes or no. So sometimes I try to control my ideas towards somebody professional with the darker minds.
Let's take a look into the future. What are you working on right now? Is there a new book coming out?
Yeah, there is a book out, but I'm not working with it. I'm just sort of preparing a signing tour in Sweden. There is a book out in Sweden a couple of weeks from now. It's called The Left-Handed Club. It's a book where my two protagonists, Barbarotti and Van Witteren, they meet for the first and last time, where I have both my detectives in one thick book. That's out in Germany next year, I think. Yeah, that's my project right now.
Okay, Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.